The year is 1839. On the shores of Humen, Guangdong, a momentous event unfolds. Under the orders of Commissioner Lin Zexu, over 20,000 chests of opium are publicly destroyed. This was not just an act of defiance against a lucrative British trade, it was a desperate attempt to save a nation teetering on the brink of collapse. For decades, the silver that once flowed into China, fueling its economy, was now hemorrhaging out, traded for a drug that addicted millions and hollowed out society. The Daoguang Emperor saw the writing on the wall. The opium trade was a poison threatening the very soul of the Qing Dynasty. Lin Zexu's actions at Humen were a bold declaration, a moral stand against a seemingly unstoppable tide. Little did he know, this bonfire would ignite the flames of a war that would plunge China into a century of darkness. The British response was swift and brutal. Angered by the seizure of their property, they dispatched a formidable fleet. Their advanced gunboats, born from the Industrial Revolution, easily outmatched the Qing's traditional war junks. This was the First Opium War, a conflict that exposed the shocking gap between a rising Western power and a declining Eastern Empire. The Treaty of Nanking, signed in 1842, was the first of many unequal treaties. It forced China to cede Hong Kong Island, open 5 ports to foreign trade, and pay a massive indemnity. More humiliatingly, it legalized the very opium trade China had fought to eradicate. This was the opening wound, the beginning of what Chinese historians would later call the Century of Humiliation. The defeat was a profound shock to the Chinese psyche. For centuries, China had viewed itself as the Middle Kingdom, the center of the civilized world. Suddenly, it was at the mercy of barbarians. This humiliation sparked a series of internal and external crises. The Second Opium War, fought from 1856 to 1860, saw British and French forces march into Beijing itself. They looted and burned the magnificent old summer palace, a treasure trove of Chinese art and architecture, reducing it to rubble. The destruction was a symbolic act, a devastating blow to China's cultural pride. More ports were opened, foreign legations were established in the capital, and Christian missionaries were granted the right to travel and own property throughout the country, often leading to friction with local populations. As the Qing Dynasty weakened, internal rebellions erupted. The Taiping Rebellion, one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, raged for 14 years, claiming tens of millions of lives. Led by Hong Xiuquan, who believed he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ, the rebellion sought to establish a heavenly kingdom of great peace. While it ultimately failed, it decimated large parts of southern China and further exposed the Qing government's inability to maintain control. The dynasty was bleeding from within and without, struggling to survive in a world that was rapidly changing around it. Amidst the chaos, some within the Qing court recognized the urgent need for change. The self-strengthening movement began in the 1860s, a period of institutional reform aimed at adopting Western military technology and scientific knowledge. The motto was, Chinese learning as the essence, Western learning for practical use. Arsenals were built, shipyards were established, and students were sent abroad to study. For a time, it seemed like a viable path forward. The New Beiyang fleet, a modern navy built with steel ships and powerful cannons, became a symbol of this newfound hope. But was it enough? Was technology alone the answer to China's deep-seated problems? The answer came in 1894, with the outbreak of the First Sino-Japanese War. Japan, a nation that had once looked to China as its cultural mentor, had undergone its own rapid modernization during the Meiji Restoration. The conflict, fought over influence in Korea, was a decisive test for both nations. In a stunning turn of events, the supposedly powerful Beiyang fleet was annihilated by the Imperial Japanese Navy at the Battle of the Yalu River. The defeat was even more humiliating than those against the Western powers. China was defeated not by a distant Western empire, but by its smaller Asian neighbor. The Treaty of Shimonoseki forced China to cede Taiwan, pay another huge indemnity, and recognize the independence of Korea, paving the way for Japan's eventual annexation. The loss to Japan shattered the illusion that simply adopting Western technology was sufficient. It became clear that deeper, more fundamental political and social reforms were needed. This realization fueled a new wave of intellectual fervor. Reformers like Kang Yue and Liang Qichao gained the ear of the young Guangxu emperor, leading to the 100 Days Reform of 1898. They proposed sweeping changes to the government, education, and military. However, this radical program was swiftly crushed by conservative elements at court, led by the powerful Empress Dowager Cixi. The emperor was placed under house arrest, the reformers were executed or fled into exile, and the brief glimmer of hope was extinguished. Frustration and anti-foreign sentiment continued to simmer, boiling over in 1900 with the Boxer Rebellion. The Boxers, a secret society who believed they were immune to foreign weapons, launched a violent campaign to drive out all foreigners from China. They besieged the Foreign Legation Quarter in Beijing, prompting an international military coalition, the Eight-Nation Alliance, to invade. The alliance, which included Japan, Russia, Britain, France, the United States, Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary, brutally suppressed the uprising and occupied Beijing. The resulting Boxer Protocol imposed the harshest terms yet, a staggering indemnity that would cripple the Qing economy for decades, and the right for foreign powers to station troops in the capital. The Qing Dynasty was now a shell of its former self, its sovereignty all but gone. The final death knell for the Qing Dynasty sounded in 1911. A revolution that began with an accidental bomb explosion in Wuchang quickly spread across the country. Provinces declared their independence from Qing rule one by one. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a revolutionary who had spent years organizing and fundraising from abroad, returned to China and was declared the provisional president of the new Republic of China. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, the child Puyi, formally abdicated the throne, bringing an end to more than 2,000 years of imperial rule in China. A new chapter had begun, but the path ahead would be anything but smooth. The new republic was weak and fragmented. Power quickly fell into the hands of regional military leaders, ushering in the warlord era. The country was carved up into personal fiefdoms, and the central government in Beijing was powerless. It was against this backdrop of national disunity that China entered World War I, hoping that by siding with the Allies, it could reclaim its lost territories. However, at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, the Allied powers decided to transfer German concessions in Shandong, not back to China, but to Japan. The news triggered outrage across the nation. On May 4th, thousands of students in Beijing took to the streets in protest. This was the May 4th movement, a pivotal moment that marked a surge in Chinese nationalism and a turn towards more radical political ideologies. It was a cultural and intellectual awakening that would profoundly shape the course of modern Chinese history. Inspired by the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia and disillusioned with the West, some Chinese intellectuals turned to Marxism-Leninism. In 1921, the Communist Party of China was founded in Shanghai. At the same time, Sun Yat-sen reorganized his nationalist party, the Kuomintang, with the help of Soviet advisors. For a time, the two parties formed a united front, working together to defeat the warlords and unify the country. After Sun Yat-sen's death, his successor, Chiang Kai-shek, launched the Northern Expedition. By 1928, he had nominally reunified China and established a new national government in Nanjing. But the alliance was fragile. In 1927, Chiang violently purged the communists from the Kuomintang, igniting a brutal civil war that would last for decades, as China was consumed by internal conflict. An external threat loomed larger than ever. Japan, now a militaristic empire with expansionist ambitions, invaded Manchuria in 1931, establishing the puppet state of Manchukuo. Chiang Kai-shek's government, focused on eliminating the communists, adopted a policy of non-resistance, but Japan's aggression only escalated. In 1937, a clash at the Marco Polo Bridge near Beijing ignited the full-scale Second Sino-Japanese War. The Japanese military swept through China, capturing Shanghai and the capital, Nanjing. What followed was the Nanjing Massacre, a horrific period of mass murder and war rape that lasted for 6 weeks. Despite the brutality and immense losses, China refused to surrender. The Kuomintang and communists formed a second, uneasy united front to fight the common enemy. For 8 long years, China fought on, much of it alone, tying down millions of Japanese troops in a grueling war of attrition. The war's end in 1945 did not bring peace. It brought the immediate resumption of the Chinese Civil War. The conflict between the nationalists and the communists raged across the war-torn country. Despite initial American support for the nationalists, the tide turned in favor of the communists, led by Mao Zedong. Their land reform policies won them widespread support among the peasantry, and their disciplined, battle-hardened forces proved superior. By 1949, the communists had decisively won. Chiang Kai-shek and his followers retreated to the island of Taiwan. On October 1st, 1949, standing atop the Gate of Heavenly Peace in Beijing, Mao Zedong proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China. He declared to the world, "The Chinese people have stood up." The Century of Humiliation was officially over. A new era of resurgence had begun. This resurgence, however, came at a tremendous cost. The new government embarked on radical social and economic transformations. The Great Leap Forward, an ambitious campaign to rapidly industrialize the country, resulted in a catastrophic famine. The Cultural Revolution, a decade of political turmoil, sought to purge society of traditional and capitalist elements, leading to widespread chaos and persecution. Yet, through it all, China began to rebuild its national strength and sovereignty. It developed its own nuclear weapons, secured a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, and began to re-engage with the world, culminating in President Nixon's historic visit in 1972. After Mao's death, Deng Xiaoping ushered in a new era of reform and opening up. It decollectivized agriculture and opened the country to foreign investment, unleashing the entrepreneurial spirit of the Chinese people. Special economic zones, like Shenzhen, transformed from small fishing villages into bustling metropolises. Over the next 4 decades, China would experience the most dramatic economic transformation in human history, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. From the Opium Wars to global superpower, the journey has been one of pain, struggle, and rebirth. This is the story of a nation's fall and its remarkable rise, a story that continues to unfold and shape our world today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into history.